Are ghosts real? That answer depends on how you define ghosts. Current science cannot prove the existence of spirits that can walk through walls, hide under beds, and will crawl out and walk around to make creaking floorboards at night. But there are some psychological and neurological phenomena in which ghosts will appear from the imagination or disturbances in the brain of the person experiencing them. Think about it. Our brains are wired to find patterns and meaning, even where none exists. We see faces in clouds, hear voices in white noise, and sometimes we see ghosts in the shadows. But just because our brains are capable of conjuring up these images doesn't mean they're real. So if ghosts aren't real entities haunting our world, why do so many people believe in them? And why do some people claim to have seen them? Let's dive into the science behind ghost sightings and explore the fascinating ways our brains can trick us. From a young age, many of us are told stories about ghosts. These stories are often passed down through generations, becoming ingrained in our cultural consciousness. We see ghosts depicted in movies, TV shows, and books, further solidifying their presence in our minds. This constant exposure makes us more susceptible to believing in their existence. If you're told from a young age that a monster lives under your bed, you're more likely to be scared of the dark. The same principle applies to ghosts. The more we're exposed to the idea of them, the more likely we are to believe they're real. In 2009, researchers at the University of Illinois conducted an experiment with a supposed ghost named George. They used tricks like dimming lights and playing whispers to create a spooky atmosphere. Many participants reported feeling George's presence, even though there was no ghost. This highlights the power of suggestion and how our brains can be tricked into believing something is real. Chris French explains this is due to pareidolia, our brain's tendency to perceive patterns in random stimuli. We see faces in clouds, animals in star constellations, and ghostly figures in shadows. Our brains try to make sense of the world, sometimes jumping to conclusions. This is especially true in unfamiliar or unsettling environments. So the next time you think you see a ghost, ask yourself, is it real or just your brain playing tricks? The answer might surprise you. Imagine yourself walking alone at night. The streetlights are dim, casting long, eerie shadows. You hear a rustle in the bushes, and your heart starts to race. Are you just being paranoid, or is there actually someone lurking in the darkness? In situations like this, our brains go into overdrive, trying to assess potential threats. We become hyper-aware of our surroundings, our senses heightened. This heightened state of alertness, while helpful for survival, can also lead to misinterpretations and false alarms. Michiel van Elk, a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of Amsterdam, explains that our brains are wired to err on the side of caution. It's better to mistake a harmless bush for a dangerous animal than the other way around, he says. This better safe than sorry principle is deeply ingrained in our evolutionary history. In a 1975 study, environmental psychologist J. Appleton proposed the prospect refuge theory, suggesting that humans prefer environments that offer both a clear view of their surroundings, prospect, and a place to hide from potential danger, refuge. When we're in dimly lit or unfamiliar environments, our brains are deprived of these visual cues, making us feel more vulnerable and susceptible to imagining threats, including ghosts. This heightened sense of vulnerability can be amplified by our cultural conditioning. We've grown up with stories of ghosts and monsters lurking in the dark, and these stories can influence our perception of real-world situations. So when we find ourselves in a dark, unfamiliar environment, our brains, primed by evolution and culture, may conjure up images of ghosts as a way of explaining the unknown and encouraging us to be cautious. In a way, these imaginary ghosts, while not real, can serve a protective function, urging us to be aware of our surroundings and avoid potential danger. It's a fascinating example of how our brains, even when they're tricking us, are ultimately trying to keep us safe. Chapter 3. Sometimes you just need a ghostly companion. We humans are social creatures. We crave connection, belonging, and love. And when we experience loss, the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or even just a period of loneliness, that need for connection doesn't disappear. In fact, it can intensify. In the face of grief and loneliness, our brains sometimes seek comfort in unconventional ways. We might find ourselves talking to a deceased loved one, feeling their presence, or even seeing glimpses of them in crowds. A 2009 survey published in the British Medical Journal found that nearly half of bereaved individuals reported experiencing some form of after-death communication, such as sensing the presence of their loved one or even seeing them. While these experiences can be comforting, they're not necessarily proof of life after death. Rather, they're likely a manifestation of our brain's natural coping mechanisms, a way of processing grief and maintaining a connection with those we've lost. Think about it. When we lose someone close to us, our brains are flooded with memories. We replay conversations in our heads, picture their smiles, and cherish the moments we shared. These memories are so vivid and emotionally charged that they can sometimes feel incredibly real, blurring the lines between the past and the present. Our brains, in an attempt to make sense of these intense emotions and hold on to the connection we've lost, might interpret these vivid memories as ghostly encounters. We see our loved ones in familiar places, hear their voices in the wind, and feel their presence in moments of solitude. These experiences, while not supernatural, are a testament to the enduring power of love and the profound impact that human connection has on our brains and our lives. Chapter 4. Is your brain to blame for ghost sightings? Our brains are complex and delicate organs. When they're functioning properly, they allow us to perceive and interact with the world around us in extraordinary ways. But when our brains are compromised, whether due to mental health issues, lack of sleep, or the influence of psychoactive substances, our perception of reality can become distorted, sometimes leading to unusual and even unsettling experiences, including ghost sightings. Take, for example, sleep paralysis, a condition that affects millions of people worldwide. During sleep paralysis, individuals find themselves caught between sleep and wakefulness, unable to move or speak, often accompanied by a feeling of intense fear and the sensation of a presence in the room. Many people who experience sleep paralysis report seeing shadowy figures, feeling pressure on their chests, or even hearing voices whispering in their ears. These terrifying hallucinations are thought to be caused by a disruption in the brain's sleep-wake cycle, blurring the lines between dreams and reality. Similarly, mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, and PTSD can also influence our perception and lead to unusual experiences. For example, someone experiencing anxiety might misinterpret a shadow as a lurking figure, or someone with PTSD might have flashbacks that feel incredibly real. Psychoactive substances, such as hallucinogens, can also alter our brain chemistry and lead to profound changes in perception, often resulting in vivid hallucinations and a distorted sense of reality. It's no surprise that many people who report seeing ghosts have also reported using these substances. It's important to note that experiencing ghost sightings doesn't necessarily mean you're mentally ill. However, if you're concerned about your mental health or are experiencing persistent and distressing hallucinations, it's crucial to seek professional help. Chapter 5. The Ghostly Science of Infrasound. In 1998, British engineer Vic Tandy was working late one night in his lab when he experienced a series of strange and unsettling phenomena. He felt a cold chill, saw a gray blob out of the corner of his eye, and felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Tandy, a self-proclaimed skeptic, initially dismissed these experiences as tricks of his imagination. However, as the occurrences persisted, he became determined to find a rational explanation. After ruling out other possibilities, Tandy discovered that his lab was resonating at a low-frequency sound wave known as infrasound. Infrasound, which is below the range of human hearing, is known to cause a variety of physiological effects, including feelings of unease, anxiety, and even hallucinations. Tandy theorized that the infrasound in his lab was causing his ghostly encounters. He even identified a specific frequency, 18.9 Hz, which he dubbed the fear frequency, as it seemed to be particularly effective at inducing feelings of dread and unease. While Tandy's findings were initially met with skepticism, subsequent studies have supported his hypothesis, suggesting that infrasound can indeed influence our perception and lead to experiences that we might interpret as supernatural. Infrasound is produced by a variety of sources, both natural and man-made. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and even strong winds can generate infrasound. Man-made sources include machinery, traffic, and even some types of music. So, the next time you find yourself in a place that feels haunted, pay attention to your surroundings. Are there any potential sources of infrasound nearby? A rumbling engine, a vibrating fan, or even a strong gust of wind could be the culprit behind your ghostly experience. Chapter 6. The truth is out there, and it's probably not ghosts. So, are ghosts real? While science can't definitively prove or disprove the existence of ghosts as we traditionally understand them, it can offer compelling explanations for why people believe in them and report seeing them. Our brains, shaped by evolution, culture, and personal experiences, are constantly trying to make sense of the world around us. Sometimes they find patterns where none exist, conjure up images to explain the unknown, and seek comfort in the face of loss. So the next time you think you're having a mysterious encounter with people from the other world in a familiar, repetitive space, try checking to see if there's a source of infrasound nearby. Science may not be able to prove ghosts are real, but it can